The wealthiest place on this earth is not a gold mine. It is not an oil field. It is not a bank vault protected by steel and combination locks. The wealthiest place on this earth is the cemetery. And the reason is not because of the bodies buried there, but because of the ideas that were never executed, the books that were never written, the businesses that were never launched, the disciplines that were never developed, the minds that were never trained. People took to their graves more potential than they ever released into the earth. And the tragedy is not that they died. The tragedy is that they lived without ever becoming what they were designed to be. Let me submit to you that the most dangerous enemy of your future is not your environment, not your past, not your opposition, not your lack of resources. The most dangerous enemy of your future is an untrained mind, because an untrained mind will always sabotage what a trained spirit is trying to build. You can have vision, and a weak mind will abandon it at the first sign of difficulty. You can have purpose, and an undisciplined mind will delay it for another decade. You can have potential so vast it could change a generation, and a soft mind will bury it quietly, without ceremony, without explanation, without resistance. Where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. And I want you to understand that most people are abusing their own minds, not because they are careless people, but because nobody told them that the mind is not a leisure facility. It is a manufacturing plant. It is a command center. It is the seat of dominion. And if you do not train it, it will train itself on whatever surrounds it. And whatever surrounds most people is noise, distraction, comfort, and the opinions of others who themselves have untrained minds. You don't need motivation. You need revelation. Motivation gets you excited for 72 hours. Revelation restructures the way you operate for the rest of your life. So I am not standing here to stir your emotions. I am standing here to correct a fundamental misunderstanding about what the mind is, what it is designed to do, and why training it is not optional for anyone who intends to fulfill their assignment on this earth. Let me submit to you the first principle, and it is the foundation upon which everything else must be built. The mind was not designed for comfort, it was designed for conquest. Read that again slowly in your own thoughts. The mind was not designed for comfort, it was designed for conquest. When a manufacturer builds a product, the design is determined by the purpose, not by the preference of the product. A hammer is not designed to be gentle. It is designed to drive force into resistance. A blade is not designed to stay sharp in a drawer. It is designed to cut through what would otherwise be impenetrable. And the human mind, in its original design, was built for engagement with challenge, with complexity, with resistance, with problem, with pressure. This is not theory. This is design language. The moment you begin to treat comfort as the goal of your life, you have begun operating against your own design. And here is where the analogy becomes precise. When a manufacturer builds a product and that product is operated in ways that contradict the design specification, the product breaks down. Not because it is defective, but because it is being misused. Most people are not failing because they are deficient. They are failing because they are misusing the most powerful instrument they possess. They are using the mind as a resting place when it was built to be a training ground. The explanation of this principle is not complicated. The mind grows through resistance, the same way a muscle grows through resistance. No physiologist will tell you that a muscle develops in the absence of stress. The stress is not the enemy of the muscle. The stress is the mechanism of development. Take away the stress and the muscle atrophies. It shrinks. It loses its capacity. Not because something was taken from it from the outside, but because it was deprived of the very thing that activates its growth. Your mind operates under the same law. Difficulty is not punishment. Difficulty is curriculum. Opposition is not a sign that you are on the wrong path. Opposition is evidence that the path has something worth protecting at the end of it. The contrast between those who honor this principle and those who ignore it is measurable. The person who avoids challenge remains intellectually soft, emotionally reactive, and perpetually dependent on external conditions to determine internal states. The person who embraces challenge develops what I will call mental architecture, a structural capacity to hold weight under pressure without collapsing. And that architecture cannot be purchased. It cannot be inherited. It can only be built through the deliberate choice to engage what is hard. Now let me give you the second principle. Because the first principle without the second one produces recklessness. The mind must be trained with intention, not just with exposure. There is a difference between being exposed to difficulty and being trained through difficulty. Exposure without intention produces trauma. Training with intention produces toughness. And the distinction is this. Intention means you understand why you are in the difficulty, what you are supposed to extract from it, and what you are being built to carry afterward. A blacksmith does not put iron into fire carelessly. The blacksmith understands the metallurgical process, the temperature required, the duration of exposure, the moment to withdraw the metal, the precision of the strike while it is malleable. The fire is not the punishment of the iron. The fire is the prerequisite for the iron becoming what it was always capable of becoming. But notice this, the blacksmith must be skilled. Unskilled heat application does not produce a blade. It produces a damaged piece of metal. And this is why intention matters. You must approach the training of your mind the way a skilled craftsman approaches the shaping of his materials, with knowledge of the process, with respect for the sequence, and with clarity about the desired outcome. The application of this principle is precise. Every morning when you wake up, before you allow the world to impose its agenda upon your consciousness, you must set an intention for your mind. What am I going to think about today? What am I going to allow to occupy this command center? What am I going to refuse entry to? Because the mind is a territory, and territory that is not governed will be occupied. That is a universal law of dominion. Ungoverned territory becomes occupied territory. And if you do not govern your mind with intention, your environment will occupy it, your fears will occupy it, your history will occupy it, other people's opinions will set up residence in it, and you will spend your life living out a program that was installed by accident rather than by design. Let me tell you about the eagle, because the eagle teaches this principle better than most lectures. When a mother eagle determines that her eaglets are ready to fly, she does not simply encourage them. She begins to make the nest uncomfortable. She removes the soft lining, the feathers, the padding that made the nest feel like a permanent residence. She exposes the thorns and the rough branches beneath, and the eaglets, who have known nothing but comfort in that nest, begin to experience something they have never felt before. Discomfort in what was once their place of peace. And some observers who do not understand the process look at this and call it cruelty. But the mother eagle is not being cruel. She is being precise. She understands that a bird designed for the heights cannot develop the strength required for flight while remaining in the comfort of a nest. The discomfort is not a malfunction of the environment. The discomfort is the announcement that it is time to become what you were born to be. And here is the principle hidden inside that story. Your discomfort is often your design speaking to you. When your current situation begins to feel insufficient, when the place that once satisfied you begins to feel small, when the comfort that once felt like peace begins to feel like a cage, do not run to the next comfortable place. Recognize that something inside you is ready to fly and needs the discomfort to force the wings open. Most people respond to discomfort by immediately seeking comfort. Trained minds respond to discomfort by asking, what is this preparing me for? The third principle, and this one is perhaps the most misunderstood of all. Discipline is not restriction. Discipline is direction. I want to expose a lie that has been quietly accepted in this generation. The lie that freedom means the absence of constraint. People have been taught that discipline is what you do when you are forced to, and that freedom is what you experience when there is nothing requiring anything of you. And so an entire generation is pursuing a life with no demands, no deadlines, no structure, no accountability, and they call this freedom. Let me submit to you, that is not freedom. That is drift. And drift always ends at a destination you did not choose. A river without banks is not free. It is a flood. The banks do not restrict the river. The banks give the river direction, velocity, and power. Remove the banks and the water loses its force. It spreads thin across the land and becomes a swamp, stagnant, shallow, and useless for navigation. The discipline you apply to your mind is not your limitation. It is your direction system. It is what transforms raw potential into channeled power. Every person who has ever produced something significant in this world operated under a system of discipline that the casual observer would call extreme. They woke when others slept. They studied when others entertained themselves. They practiced when others rested. They refused what others accepted. Not because they were trying to prove something to anyone, but because they understood that their assignment required a mind that had been sharpened by consistent discipline. The proof of this principle is visible in every field of human excellence. The athlete who performs at the highest level is not performing in the moment. They are expressing in the moment what was built in 10,000 hours of disciplined practice when no audience was present. The musician who moves a concert hall to tears is not being emotional on stage. They are channeling the discipline of 10,000 hours of lonely practice into a single public expression. The leader who navigates complexity with calm authority is not naturally calm. They have trained their mind through deliberate discipline to hold pressure without collapse. What looks like gift is almost always the product of discipline training. The gift was the raw material. The discipline was the manufacturing process. The application is this. You must build a disciplined structure and protect it the way a general protects a strategic position. Not because you are rigid, but because you understand that without structure, the urgent will always crowd out the important. The comfortable will always displace the necessary. And the person you are today will always defeat the person you are trying to become. Discipline is how tomorrow's version of you wins the daily battle against today's preferences. Now let me teach you the fourth principle. And it operates in the realm of identity. You cannot train a mind that does not know what it is training for. This is the manufacturer's blueprint principle. Every product that comes off a manufacturing line has a specification document, a blueprint, a purpose statement that defines what the product is designed to do, what it can handle, what its maximum capacity is, what environments it is built to operate in, and when a product is operated without reference to its specification, it is almost always underperforming or being destroyed by misuse. Most people are living their lives without reference to their original specification. They are making decisions based on what their culture suggests, what their peers are doing, what their fears are willing to permit, and what their history has conditioned them to expect. And none of those reference points carry the authority of the original design. You did not design yourself. The one who designed you embedded in you a specification that is more accurate than your biography, more reliable than your feelings, more permanent than your circumstances. And the training of your mind must be anchored to that specification, or it is simply training for the wrong assignment. This is why so many disciplined people are still unfulfilled, because they are highly trained for a purpose they were not designed for. Discipline without alignment is impressive but empty. The question is not only how strong is your mind, the question is your mind being trained in the direction of your design? Are you building mental toughness for your assignment or for someone else's definition of success? The fifth principle, and this one will require you to sit with it. Pain is a language that trained minds learn to translate. Untrained minds experience pain as a stop sign. Trained minds experience pain as a signal. And the difference between those two interpretations will determine whether your suffering produces wisdom or simply accumulates into bitterness. Let me tell you about the seed. A seed pressed into the ground experiences something that from the seed's perspective could only be described as burial, the weight of the soil, the darkness of the environment, the breaking of the outer shell, the loss of the form it previously had. And yet the entire agricultural system of this planet depends on what that experience produces. The breaking of the outer shell is not the destruction of the seed, it is the release of what the shell was containing. The darkness is not absence of life, it is the incubation chamber for new life. The pressure of the soil is not rejection, it is the environment that forces the root system deeper before the growth appears above the surface. Your pain is not evidence that you are failing. Your pain may be evidence that something in you is breaking open. That the outer shell of who you used to be is cracking under the pressure of who you are becoming. And trained minds understand this. They do not waste their pain. They do not run from their pain. They sit with it long enough to extract from it the intelligence it is carrying. Because every painful experience contains information. Information about your capacity, about your design, about your breaking points, about where your foundations need to be reinforced. And the person who runs from every uncomfortable experience is a person who is perpetually ignorant of themselves. The application of this principle requires what I call principled endurance, which is different from passive suffering. Passive suffering simply waits for pain to end. Principled endurance engages the pain with the question, what am I supposed to learn here? What is this building in me? What is this requiring of me that I have not yet developed? And when you begin asking those questions in the middle of difficulty, the difficulty stops being your enemy and starts being your teacher. And your enemies make terrible teachers. But your teachers can become the very architects of your greatest strength. Now let me tell you about the bridge builder. There was an engineer given the assignment of building a bridge over a particularly violent and unpredictable body of water. The water was known for sudden surges, violent currents, and conditions that had destroyed previous attempts at construction. And people said to this engineer, you cannot build something permanent over something this unstable. And the engineer said, something that has stayed with me, the answer is not to wait for the water to calm. The answer is to build foundations deep enough that the violence of the surface cannot determine the stability of the structure. Let me submit to you, that is the assignment of mental training. You are not training your mind so that life will become easy. Life will not become easy. Life is not designed to be easy. You are training your mind so that the violence on the surface of your circumstances cannot determine the stability of your structure. You are building foundations deep enough that when the currents come, and they will come, you do not collapse. You hold. And you continue to build. That is mental toughness. It is not the absence of pressure. It is the presence of a foundation that pressure cannot destroy. Now let me show you how to train your mind to be strong. The first discipline of a mentally strong person is the discipline of input management. You must govern what enters your mind with the same precision that a manufacturer governs what enters a clean room. A clean room in a semiconductor facility controls the environment so precisely that even a single particle of contamination can compromise the entire product. The product is that sensitive because it is that valuable. Your mind is that valuable. And yet most people leave the door wide open to any thought, any conversation, any piece of media, any opinion that wants to walk in and set up residence. Begin immediately with this practice. Every morning before you engage any screen, any news, any social media, any outside voice, you spend 30 minutes in deliberate mental preparation. You feed your mind material that expands your understanding of your design and your assignment, not entertainment, not distraction, not information about other people's lives, but material that increases your clarity about who you are and what you are here to produce. This single discipline, maintained consistently, will begin to restructure your baseline thinking within 90 days. The science of neuroplasticity confirms what ancient wisdom always declared. The mind reshapes itself according to what it consistently receives. The second discipline is the discipline of thought interruption. An untrained mind allows any thought to run its full course, regardless of where it leads. A trained mind has developed the capacity to recognize a destructive thought pattern before it gains momentum and to interrupt it with a counter thought rooted in principle. This is not positive thinking. I am not suggesting you deny reality. I am saying that when a thought enters that is rooted in fear, in self-limitation, in borrowed shame, in manufactured inadequacy, a trained mind does not entertain that thought as a guest. It identifies it as an intruder and removes it through deliberate redirection. The practical mechanism is this. When you catch yourself in a thought pattern that is diminishing you, that is telling you that you are too late, too limited, too damaged, too small, you stop. You name the thought for what it is. And you replace it with a statement rooted in your design. Not a statement designed to make you feel good. A statement designed to align you with what is true about your original specification. You do this not once. You do this every time. Until the interruption becomes automatic. Until the trained response becomes faster than the untrained reaction. The third discipline is the discipline of delayed gratification. Let me be precise about this one. Every time you choose the immediate comfort over the necessary process, you are making a withdrawal from your mental toughness account. And people who consistently choose comfort over process will always arrive at a future that is smaller than their potential. Conversely, every time you choose the necessary process over the immediate comfort, you are making a deposit. You are building the compound interest of mental strength. And compound interest doesn't feel significant in the early days, but over time, it produces results that seem miraculous to people who never understood the process. The specific practice is this. Identify one area in your life where you have been choosing comfort over process. Just one. It might be your physical health. It might be a skill you know you need to develop. It might be a relationship you know needs difficult conversation. It might be a business you have been designing in your mind for years, but have never started because starting is uncomfortable. And beginning today, you commit to choosing the process in that one area for 60 days. Not 90, not a year. 60 days of consistent choosing. Because 60 days of principled decision making will begin to break the pattern of comfort addiction in your mind. And that break will spread to other areas of your life like a beneficial fracture through a dam. The fourth discipline is the discipline of environment design. You cannot build a strong mind in an environment that is designed to produce weak thinking. Your environment is not neutral. Your environment is constantly sending signals to your mind about what is normal, what is acceptable, what is expected, and what is possible. If the people surrounding you have normalized mediocrity, your mind will experience cognitive friction every time you try to reach beyond it. If the spaces you inhabit signal defeat, your mind will subconsciously align itself with defeat. This is not weakness. This is the reality of how environment interfaces with psychology. Design your environment deliberately. Remove from your immediate proximity anything that consistently signals limitation to your mind. This includes relationships that have a sustained pattern of pulling you toward your lowest version, conversations that consistently rehearse failure without extracting wisdom from it, entertainment that trains your attention span toward passivity and your imagination toward smallness. Replace those with environments that signal your assignment, that surround you with evidence of what is possible, that keep your vision continuously in front of you. The fifth discipline is the discipline of purposeful review. At the end of every day, not every week, every day, you spend 10 minutes in deliberate review. What did my mind produce today? What did I allow in that I should not have allowed? Where did I honor the training, and where did I default to the old patterns? What do I need to approach differently tomorrow? This is not self-criticism. This is quality control. And every manufacturing operation that maintains quality has a continuous quality control system. Without it, defects accumulate. And accumulated defects become structural problems. This daily review practice builds something that most people never develop: honest self-knowledge. And honest self-knowledge is one of the most powerful assets a person can possess, because you cannot fix what you will not examine, and you cannot strengthen what you cannot locate. Now let me speak to the matter of time, because this is where most people make their most costly error. They believe they have more time than they do. They believe that the development of mental strength is something they will begin when conditions improve, when they are more settled, when the pressure subsides, when they have more clarity, when they feel ready. And let me submit to you with full authority: readiness is not a feeling. Readiness is a decision. And the decision must be made under conditions that are less than ideal, because ideal conditions are not the environment in which strong minds are built. The mind that waits for ideal conditions to begin training will always be waiting, because this life will not pause its demands to give you a comfortable runway into transformation. The curriculum of mental strength is delivered in real time, inside the actual pressure of your real life, not in a laboratory setting. And this means you begin now. Not when you have processed this fully. Not when you have figured out all the steps. Not when you feel sufficiently motivated. The training begins at the exact moment you decide it begins. You do not need more time. You need to use the time you have with more intentionality. Every person in history who built something remarkable built it in the same 24 hours you have been given. The variable was never the time. The variable was always the discipline of the mind inside the time. Let me speak now about identity, because everything I have taught you today will collapse without a stable foundation of identity. Mental toughness without identity is just hardness. And hardness without identity is destructive rather than constructive. The strength of your mind must be anchored to the truth of who you are, not to performance, not to achievement, not to the opinions of those around you, not to what you have produced or failed to produce in the past. You are not an accident of biology. You are not a random collision of circumstances. You carry within you an original design that is specific to you and cannot be fully replicated in any other person who has lived or who will live. Your fingerprint is not just on your hand. Your fingerprint is on your assignment. There is a contribution that only you can make through the particular combination of your design, your experience, your pain, your process, your revelation. And if you do not make that contribution, it simply will not be made. The earth will have revolved through your season, and you will have delivered nothing that only you could deliver. That is not a small matter. That is the weight of your responsibility. And I want you to feel that weight, not as shame, but as clarification of what is at stake in the training of your mind. The reason mental toughness matters is not so that you can impress people. It is not so that you can survive difficult seasons. It is because the world needs what is inside you. And what is inside you can only get out through a mind that is strong enough to sustain the process of producing it. Let me also correct the misunderstanding about failure, because many people have allowed past failure to convince them that they are disqualified from the training. Failure is not disqualification. Failure is information. The person who has never failed has also never pressed into territory worth claiming. Every significant builder in human history carries in their biography a chapter of failure that preceded their greatest contribution. Not despite the failure, but often because of it. The failure was the classroom. The failure was where they discovered what didn't work, what they were missing, where their thinking had gaps, what they needed to develop before the weight of the next level could be carried without collapse. Your failure is not your final chapter unless you choose to make it your permanent address. You are not required to live at that address. You are required to extract the education from it and carry that education forward into the building of what comes next. That is what trained minds do with failure. They mine it. They extract the ore of understanding from the rock of disappointment. And they use that ore to build something stronger. The prophetic word I want to leave inside you today is this. You are not behind. You are being prepared. And the preparation is happening inside every experience you have been trying to escape, every difficulty you have labeled as delay, every disappointment you have called a detour. The formation of a strong mind does not happen in the absence of difficulty. It happens in the disciplined engagement of difficulty. And everything you have been through up to this moment has been loading into you a capacity that you have not yet fully accessed. The alignment you are looking for is not ahead of you, waiting for you to arrive. It is inside you, waiting for you to awaken. An awakening is not an emotional experience. It is a decision of the will. It is the decision to stop operating from fear and start operating from design. It is the decision to stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this producing in me? It is the decision to stop comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20 and to start writing your chapter 3 with everything that is in you. Your pain has not been wasted. Your process has not been random. Your difficulty has not been personal persecution. It has been purposeful preparation. And the person who comes out of this season with a trained mind, a disciplined will, a clear identity, and a committed assignment will look back at what felt like destruction and recognize it for what it actually was, construction. They were building you from the inside out while you were waiting to be rescued from the outside in. Make a decision today that your mind belongs to your assignment. Make a decision that you will govern the input. Interrupt the destruction. Delay the gratification. Design the environment and review the progress. Make these 5 disciplines your daily non-negotiables and watch what 12 months of consistent application produces in the architecture of your thinking. Do not drift through another season. Do not waste another year waiting for conditions to align themselves for your comfort. The conditions are already aligned for your training. Everything you need to begin is already present in the life you are currently living. The inconvenience is the curriculum. The opposition is the curriculum. The delay is the curriculum. The limitation is the curriculum. And when the mind is trained to receive all of it as curriculum rather than catastrophe, you become unstoppable. Not because nothing can touch you, but because nothing can finish you. Not because the storm does not come, but because the foundation goes deeper than any storm can reach. Be original, not a copy. Your assignment on this earth is not to reproduce someone else's life. It is to fully produce your own. And your own requires a mind that has been trained, disciplined, sharpened, anchored, and aimed at the specific target of your design. Die empty. This is the standard. Not empty of life, empty of everything you were sent here to produce. Every book, every idea, every solution, every contribution that is inside you belongs to the earth. And it is your responsibility to deliver it before your time here concludes. The grave is already full of people who intended to begin later, who were waiting for better conditions, whose potential went with them into the ground untouched. You are still above ground. That means your window of contribution is still open. And every morning you wake up, that window has not yet closed. The time is now. The mind is your instrument. The training begins today.